I just got the Inc. 500
Nice.
email founder. Exactly my reaction. Cool. 5 minutes later, I was like, well, that didn't solve all my problems. Here we go up to the next thing. Not to say that like those things shouldn't be like celebrated, applauded, and not to say that you shouldn't want those things. But if they are like your primary driving force, then it's probably knowledge to receive that you're going after things based on how they look instead of how they feel. If you still would go after it with no one knowing, then it's a really good indicator that your like compass is well calibrated. Go for it.
You're not where you want to be yet. And somewhere in the back of your head, there's a voice that says, once I get there, I'll finally be okay. But what if that voice is actually the problem? Jess Ekstrom built 2 companies, wrote 2 books, and learned the hard way that none of it feels the way that you think it will until you change the goal. She built her first company, Headbands of Hope, from $0 to millions in revenue, and her new book, Making It Without Losing It, is the roadmap she wishes she had at the start. Here's what we'll get into today. The false summit trap, why the goal you're chasing will almost certainly reveal a bigger one behind it, why your problems right now are actually proof that you're in the game, not proof that you're behind, and how to build a definition of success that is actually yours, not the one that you borrowed from someone else's highlight reel. If you're still in the climb and you want to enjoy the journey without losing your drive, this episode was made for you. Let's jump in. Even though you have made it, you still have such a deep level of ambition.
Mhm.
So what is it that pushes you? Because that's one of the key themes of the book, right?
Yeah.
The importance of ambition and balancing at the same time. But by most objective metrics, all reasonable objective metrics, you've made it. You and your husband, you're good, you're doing well, but still pushing for more. So
Mhm.
tell me about your personal relationship with that ambition that is within you that drives you forward.
I remember the day it started. I was in middle school. My parents signed me up for a program called Outward Bound, and it's like where they throw you in the woods and call it leadership. And so I was like, "Mom, Dad, I'm more of an inward bound kind of girl. I don't really want to do this." And they were like, "No, you're going." And so our instructor took us on this hike one day and said, "When you get to the top of this mountain, everyone in the group is going to get M&Ms." I was like, "Now you're talking." And so we're going up this mountain, super steep. I see the other kids in my group in front of me making it to this peak, but they're not celebrating and they're not eating M&Ms. And so I'm like, "What am I missing here?" And then that's when I got to the peak, or so I thought. I got to that peak only to see when I got there that there was a whole other peak that we had yet to climb, and that was obstructing our view, the one that we were climbing. So our instructor sits us down on this first peak, and we're all just like tired, frustrated, M&M less, and looking at like, oh shit, we still have like so much more to go. And he said he specifically took us on the hike to teach us something. I was like, okay, Tony Robbins, I don't need a lesson. I just want my M&Ms. And he's like, look, this is what's called a false summit. A false summit is the belief that you're about to make it. But then when you do, you realize that there's more left to go. And it happens all the time. I mean, it happens when you hit a revenue number that you thought was going to launch you into this whole other like orbit of business ownership. It happens when you move into a new house that you thought was going to solve all your problems. It happens in, like if I can get my kid into this school, or if I can hire this person, then I can finally be happy, feel fulfilled, be successful. Once I can pay myself this amount of money. And then the goalpost keeps moving, the progress bar keeps extending. And that was the moment that I realized what that was a false summit. But it took me years into building my businesses, Headbands of Hope, Mic Drop Workshop, growing them to millions of dollars to realize how that actually, um, I hate using the word manifest, but how that manifests into disappointment all the time. And uh in some cases, even becoming a parent, like depression. Oh, this was this thing that I really wanted. And now why am I not happy? because we put so much stake in the summit. Like, I just want to get there. But there was this really interesting study called it was around dopamine, and it was at Vanderbilt University. And for so long we thought that we got that hit of dopamine, that like happiness chemical that we want at the result, like in the payout, at the ribbon cutting, whatever it might be. But the study showed that we actually don't get dopamine at the results. We get it in anticipation of the result. We get it in the process, or we get it in the build. And so making it without losing it in this book is really just this idea of like, do we have to keep trading future ambition for present joy? And the answer is no. But it takes a lot of effort and a lot of rewiring to have them exist at once, which is what I'm working on and what this book is on.
This is great. This is great because I think so many people can relate to this. First of all, we can relate to our parents telling us to do something that makes no sense at the time. That's very
Exactly. I'm like, you want me to go where and do what? Yeah.
but then being annoyed at how profound the realization was. It's like,
Yes.
oh man, that's really helpful. And I think about the mountains too. It's true. We try to climb these mountains only to find another mountain, and or
Mhm.
look up and see somebody else on a different, bigger mountain, and we say, "Oh my gosh!" And I think one of the things that I was trying to do, I've started to do better, is look back at my previous notes and things that I used to say in the past. And I try to look at my life not through my own present eyes, but I say to myself, there's a version of myself that would be deeply grateful for the problems I'm experiencing right now. And I remember going back and seeing one of my journal notes from 2016 when I started the business, and I was like, "Man, last month I made $1,200, and if I could keep on going, I think I could do this."
I think I can make $2,000. Yeah.
I'm like, that's adorable, right?
Yeah.
And so I think about the things that make me panic today, or and make me concerned. Like those are the problems I wish I would have had. Um,
Such a good point. It makes me think about sometimes we make changes in our mind, we make changes to have 0 problems when we're really actually making changes to have new ones.
yes.
And for me, that was selling my first company, Headbands of Hope, which was, your first business. It's like your first love. I mean, it's just so ingrained in you. It was who I thought I was. I deeply associated my self-worth with that company, which is a slippery slope. But when it was kind of, and it was such a do good business that it was conflicting to feel like I wanted to do something else, because I'm like, wait, but this business is so great. But the way I was finally able to kind of wrap my head around it is when you are like reading a really good book, and all the pages you already read, are in your left hand, and you only have so many more pages left to read in your right hand. And you want to savor it, but you know that the book is ending. And that's how it felt at my business, where I was like, look at all this stuff that I've done in my left hand, all the pages that have been written. I don't have many more pages here. I don't feel like I'm the one to keep doing this, because when I thought about the problems that Headbands of Hope had, which was very normal problems for a consumer business. It was supply chain, it was fulfillment, it was trends of hair accessories, like things like that. Those were not problems I was excited to solve. But then with Mic Drop Workshop, which was what I like really wanted to leave and go do, which was helping women get paid speaking engagements, those problems of equal pay, of how do I get information delivered in a way that people can absorb, that makes sense, how can I start a referral community of women speakers, those were problems I was excited to solve. And so sometimes, like when we think about a big change or a solve or moving or whatever it might be, realize like very rarely is there a change or a solution that brings 0 problems. It's going to bring new ones. So are the new problems ones that you're excited to solve? Because that's at the end of it is all this is. All work is problem solving. Whether it's a new client, whether it's making more money, whether it's getting a better like satisfaction rating, it's all problem solving. So how do we make it so the problems that we have to solve are ones we're excited to solve?
Mm, that is so good. That's so good. You're absolutely right. It's trading old problems for better
Yeah,
problems, essentially.
exactly.
That's it. And I remember one time I was chatting with Simone, our producer here, and he said that every solution comes with a problem attached.
Mm,
And I think it's
Simone,
such a
spot
great
on.
spot on. It's such a great metaphor for life. And then going back to what you said about the study from Vanderbilt, it's again, earlier you said, "Oh, I hate saying manifest because it's kind of overplayed."
It is.
Well, I hate saying it's about the journey because it's overplayed, but it is an inescapable truth
Yeah.
because that study just shows scientifically that it is truly about the journey. The
Mhm.
dopamine is there in anticipation. Then once you get it, the dopamine ends, you
Yes.
know? And so we have to find ways to find pleasure and enjoyment and purpose in the
Mhm.
process. I think back to Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was a Jewish psychologist living in Nazi Germany. And so going through at Auschwitz, so he's seen the worst of the worst. And he said that when he would see people start to fade and die, he said he could tell the moment when they broke, and it was because they lost purpose. You have to have a
Mm.
reason. If you I forget the exact phrasing, but it's like, if you know your why, you can survive any what, or
Mhm.
something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to the difficulties that we all experience in life, if we can find meaning in our suffering, as he would describe, and find pleasure in the journey, which is what we always say, then that's the path to sustainable ambition. But if
Mhm.
we feel like we are not okay until we achieve this certain thing, that's when it becomes very unsustainable, very toxic.
Yeah.
And for you, as you went through this, how were you able to make this shift? Because like you said, with Headbands of Hope, we can't just pass over this like this is some little, nothing business.
Mhm.
This was big. This was substantial, and it was very tied to meaning, but also your identity. How were
Yeah.
you able to find wellness in that transition?
I'm not gonna lie, I lost my mind a little bit. I
Mm.
distinctly remember getting the paperwork for the acquisition and just, like, laying on my bed and crying. And it's funny because when I was reading the audiobook for Making It Without Losing It, narrating it, there was tons of moments where I thought that I might get emotional. I might get emotional, you know, talking about postpartum, or I might get emotional talking about, like, a friend that I lost, or, this scandal that my family went through, but I got emotional talking about this acquisition of Headbands of Hope because it was such a um not only was it tied to my self-worth, it was also something that I singularly was focused on for a long time, was that, like, this was a finish line that I wanted to cross. And there's something called the post-achievement letdown. Have you ever heard of it?
Mm-mm.
So, it's when you realize it exists, a lot of things start to make sense. Like, Michael Phelps and, Simone Biles have talked about this in the Olympics, where it's like you train so much for, like, one moment, one day, like, one thing, and then it feels, when it's gone, the kind of what you were saying, that kinda, like, purposeless, directionless, okay, that was something that I was so focused on for a long time. It happens with weddings. It happens
Wow.
with, like, graduation, or, stuff where you're like, "This is the day, or this is the moment where my life is going to begin." Retirement, there's a lot of studies and research around, depression and retirement, and because once you get the thing that you've been yearning for or longing for, it rarely meets up to the vision that we had in our head, and that can be really disappointing. And so with Headbands of Hope and it getting, like, acquired, or with anything that I feel like I had a one day, a calendar date in mind of, like, once I get right now it's our conference that's happening in, like, 2 weeks, where I'm really trying to get this verbiage out of my head that says, once the conference happens, then everything's gonna just magically be better. Or we've had, like, once our kids, we were talking about this before we started recording, like, the 5 is the magic number with age. Like, once my kid's in school, then I'm gonna have no problems. And I get that things change and they get better, but like I call it in the in Making Out Without Losing It, like this arrival fallacy, where we have this idea that there's going to be a moment, a person, a place, or a thing that's going to tell us that we've arrived. Because that's how we've been trained our whole life. We were in school. Oh, you're in first grade. You did well enough. Guess what? You get to go to second grade. Oh, you did so well that you get to go to college. And now you get a job. And here's, in school, here's your report card. Here's how well you're doing. And so we've been conditioned in our most formative years to believe that we're going to know. We're going to know if we're good enough. We're going to know if we can go to the next level. And we're going to know how we're doing from someone that's smarter than us. But that's not how life works. It's just on us. And so things become more nuanced. Like, am I doing a good job? Am I where I should be in this life? Do I have enough friends? Do I have enough money? And so all of this, like, self-reporting can be really confusing when you put it on a specific date or a specific time or a specific moment, because then that moment's going to come and go and it's not going to be what you imagined. And so again, hate to go to what we're saying of like manifestation and the journey, but it really is about, do I like myself in this process? Do I like what I'm aiming or working towards? Not the moment, but what I'm working towards. There's this painting technique that I reference sometimes in my keynotes called pointillism. I'm not like crafty or artsy at all, but I think it's interesting, where it's a technique where people just put dots on a canvas. It's just a bunch of different dots. And when you're looking at it up close, you're like, this is just a bunch of dots. But then after a while, when you zoom out, you realize that the dots actually create some sort of image, like a face, a landscape, or something like that. But it was just the process of a lot of little dots. And so I think of like everything in our life, every decision that we make, every moment, everything, we don't live and die by one of it. Everything is just a dot on the canvas. And so every once in a while, we can take a step back and ask ourselves, do I like where this is heading? Do I like where it's going? Do I want to change shape? Do I need to swap out my brush and try something else? But when we put so much weight in like one single dot, we're missing the whole picture.
You're so right. This is brilliant. Brilliant. And I like it's hard for me to not think about. Here's something that I've learned over the years. How you show up matters every single day. And I'll be honest, I used to overthink getting dressed, trying to look put together without spending a fortune on it. And then I found Quince, and it genuinely simplified everything. So I bought their stretch knit pin tuck trousers, and they have been in constant rotation. I'm talking about meetings with the team, running around the town with the kids, hanging out with friends. I just throw these on and I know I look good. The fabric feels elevated, lightweight, and breathable, but they're so comfortable. I honestly feel like I'm wearing loungewear. And that's the thing. They look polished and they feel that relaxed at the same time. One pair and every kind of day. And the price? It is not at all what I expected for that kind of quality. And here's why that is. Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're getting premium materials at 50 to 80% less than what you'd pay for similar brands. For spring, think 100% European linen shorts and shirts starting at just $34, and 100% Pima cotton tees with a softness that honestly just has to be felt. And their pants hit the same sweet spot too. Relaxed and comfortable, but polished enough to wear pretty much everywhere. Refresh your everyday with luxury you can actually use. Head to quince.com/Kwame for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Kwame for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Kwame. Now available in Canada too. You know that feeling when you're in back-to-back meetings all day? You're nodding along, trying to contribute, but in the back of your mind, you're secretly stressed because you're trying to remember exactly what was just said or who was supposed to follow up on what. Meetings can be a mess, but Granola AI fixes that. Granola is an AI-powered notepad built for the way real people actually meet. Here's how it works. You take rough notes like you normally would, and then in the background, Granola securely transcribes the meeting. Then it turns everything into clean, structured, and actually useful notes the moment the meeting ends. The best part? It works through your device's audio, so it integrates seamlessly into the tools that you already use. No setup and no awkward tools. It's just your normal meeting, but with superpowers. I've found that it lets me actually listen instead of frantically typing, so I walk away knowing exactly what was decided and what comes next. Before Granola, our team would spend extra time cleaning up notes and double checking details. Now we leave meetings aligned and clear. It saved us time and helps us to operate at a much higher level. If meetings are eating up your day, granola.ai is a no-brainer. And you can try it totally free for 3 months. Just head to granola.ai/Kwame. That's granola.ai/Kwame to get your time back. Get 3 months free at granola.ai/Kwame. What I'm going through right now as you're saying this,
Tell
I
me.
think I think it's just entrepreneurship in general. It's just really
Yeah.
tough. It's just really heavy. And just recognizing that you have the capacity to handle what it is that is put in front of you if you just handle what's in front of you. If we widen our aperture too much and we think about the whole picture, then it feels really heavy. So for instance, if you just look at your whole career and then you say, oh my gosh, this speech could make or break my career. Everything is riding on this, because if this doesn't happen, then that doesn't happen, then that doesn't happen. And so then the moment feels heavy. But then if you just focus on this micro moment, this one dot in the picture, then you could say, okay, my job today is just to make the best dot possible.
Yeah.
I don't need to worry about, I can have an idea of what the big picture is, but once I get clear on what my dot needs to be, my focus needs to be on that dot.
Yes.
And what's really tough though is that our emotions will cause us to focus on things that are maybe urgent but not important. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it can shift our perspective in a way that's detrimental to us. And what's interesting is I was talking to my son about this, is that Kai, there are some people who are so smart that they're actually dumb. He's like,
So true.
he's like, what does this even mean? And I said, there's a difference between being smart and intelligent. An intelligent person understands the goal, the destination, and they do whatever it takes to get there within ethics, within the ethical bounds, of course. But a smart person is known for thinking, and then they think thinking is the destination, when it's just one of the many tools that you use to get there. And so sometimes you get into this pattern of just thinking, and then thinking about thinking, then thinking about the consequences of those thoughts, and then it just becomes incredibly overwhelming. And then you blend that with the fact that even if you're a high achiever, we become a high achiever early in our life by understanding the game, playing by the rules, winning the game according to what some arbiter of truth has told us that success is. Then once you get out into the real world, especially again in entrepreneurship, where you start to blaze your own trail, it's like, who is the adult that's supposed to tell me what to do? That's
Right.
me. Is this good enough? Then you start looking at other people to see if you're good enough. And then you start trying to compare yourself to them and win on their terms, not your own. And then it gets really messy really quickly.
There's like it's so true. And there's something called I talk about the success fingerprint, because it is so easy to say, well, Kwame has like a top 1% podcast. That should be me. Like that's what I should do. Or so and so is launching a, mastermind this, like then clearly I should do that. And very rarely do we think of success as like individualized, because we live in a world where it's like trophied everywhere on display. And so we think that we need to match what's out there. And so in the book, I go through like all the steps to make your own success fingerprint. Like what's important to you? Where do you want to spend your time? What are like these life buckets that you're contributing to in this season? Because that's another thing, is that there's a seasonality to it. Like you and I both have kids, and sometimes in different phases. Right now, I have a 1 and a 3-year-old. So success looks like, how do I make more time? Maybe not how do I make more money, but how do I make more time? But 5 years ago, it was, yeah, sure, I'll go on a plane for whatever and stay for 3 days. Like, and now I'm just like, how do I get the first flight in, first flight out, and be back to my family? And so I think going back to like pointillism in the canvas, very rarely do we audit our life without disaster. Usually there's a diagnosis. There's a something that, maybe you get laid off. Maybe there's something like grief that happens, and you kind of take a step back and you're like, hold on. Well, I'm you have this kind of jolt of like, what am I living the way that I want to live? Because you realize either how life is short or that the rules don't always work. And you could just kind of wait for something bad to happen to wonder and realize if you're doing what you want to do. But what if we didn't need that? What if we didn't need to wait like for everything to crash in order to like think, am I building what I want to build? Am I doing it in the way that feels good to me? And have I also don't like using the word balance because I think sometimes that's just like a load of shit. But am I um giving the attention to the things that I want to give attention to? Um and that's really what I think a lot of this is with success is taking the time to audit without the crisis. And
Ooh.
yeah, knowing like, oh yeah, this is working for me or this isn't working for me. And what do I need to change? But having the awareness to audit without the crisis is like a learned skill.
Yes. And again, it takes time. And one of the things that I've recognized, Jess, is that once you get to a point where your needs, your base needs are met, that gives you the opportunity to ponder these types of things.
Mhm.
Because we didn't have the luxury of being able to think like this when we were just
Right.
constantly grinding. It's like I got to put food on the table. I don't have time to ponder about philosophy here.
For
But that
sure.
it gives you a but now we have the privilege of being able to do that, which creates another challenge. It creates these micro existential crises within our life where we're like, who am I? What do I want to do?
Mhm.
And I think when it comes to happiness and success, one of the main things we have to do is give ourselves permission to adjust and adapt.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, with those audits, if we start to recognize, hold up, I change and evolve every time there's a crisis, why don't I just do that all the time as
Mhm.
necessary based on the circumstances? Then I can kind of steer the ship and make these micro adjustments. So maybe I start to avoid some of these crises before they happen. And one thing that I've been doing recently to kind of help me understand this a little bit better is thinking about it through the lens of character, but not character in the kind of moral sense, but character in the I'm watching a movie, this is my favorite character type of
Mm.
sense. So it's like, okay, if I'm watching the movie of Kwame and I am the main character, everybody else is the main character of their life, we want to respect that, but I'm watching my own movie. What do I want my character to do? Wow, hey, my character right now has potato chips on his chest looking through Instagram when there's work to be done.
Ah,
This this movie stinks. Okay, I need to
I
get up,
love that.
do something, you know? Or this, whoa, what do I want my character to be like? His kid just came in the room and he brushed him aside because he had more work to do. Is that the movie I want to see?
Mm.
No. And then recognizing, oh, this, my character will shift from time to time. And like a real good character has depth and nuance and the ability to adjust. So there will be a season for everything. So there might be a grind season, but we've seen entrepreneurs, we've seen friends where the grind becomes their identity. It's like,
Yeah.
is this even who you want to be? And I think that's
Yeah.
a question we don't even ask ourselves because so many times in life, our decisions are dictated completely by circumstance. So some fire happens. I guess I'm a firefighter today, and we've put out firefight fires all so much that we think that's who we are at our core, but we don't take the time to analyze who we want to be and what changes we could make to put ourselves on the path to find our, as somebody who said, what is it, the fingerprint of success or success
Mhm.
fingerprint,
Yeah.
understanding that your character, your success fingerprint will look different than other people.
Do you want a really morbid way to do this?
Ooh, delightful. Yes.
Write your obituary.
True.
Like, what do you want people to say about you after you go? And I know, like, in our culture, we don't really talk about death, but I think it's if we want to talk about life, then we got to talk about death.
Right.
And so much of like success and how we talk about it today, as if this is all there is, as if like nothing else matters. But we all have a clock that we don't know the time. And so if you want to wonder how do I want to live? Well, what do you want people to say about you when you die? And so I think about that a lot, like a lot, a lot. I actually went on a retreat before Ellie was born. I'm not like a meditation person, but I had been curious about going on a silent retreat. Like, what would it be like to just not talk for 4 days? And so I signed up for one. And I don't even know, have we talked about this before?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I went to a silent retreat. And when I got there, I kid you not, I just signed up. I'm not a fine like look at the detail or a fine print person. And it bit me in the ass because I got there and the theme was it was a silent retreat, but the theme was on death and dying.
Oh.
And I was like, I'm just gonna get in my car and leave because this is not where I want to be. Made me super uncomfortable. But Kwame, it was what I didn't know that I needed. Like I needed to look death straight in the eyes and know that it exists for myself, for my parents, for everyone. And we think that and of course it's sad and of course it can be morbid, but it can also be like really, oh, does this really matter? Like this
Hmm.
that I, use too many exclamation points in this email or whatever we want to say. Um, but yeah, it taught me a lot about how I want to be remembered and also what I'm building to last beyond me. In the book, I talk about I don't want to just achieve goals, I want to outlive them.
Ooh.
So, what is it that I'm creating today that's going to impact my daughter and her kids or my son's kids after I'm gone? And for me, that's equality in women's pay. That's women getting the chance to speak. That's women getting, thought leadership opportunities that can live beyond me. And so it's an interesting thing to like think about like what is my obituary and what are goals I'm working on right now that will outlive me.
Hmm. And that ties back to purpose, right?
Mhm.
And the thing is, everybody has a purpose. I was talking to I was speaking in San Diego and I was talking to the bartender and he was saying it was a really cool philosophical discussion we were having. And he's like, I'm sorry for talking your ear off. I was like, yeah, I love talking to people, so this is great. And he says, "Yeah, these ideas, I don't think people want to hear it." I said, I'm here. I'm hearing it. That's good." And so he's because he said I just keep to myself. I said, "Well, the things that you believe, the things that you have inside of you, it's important to you. It's possible that there's another you out there who just doesn't know that you exist." And even if it's one person, that is meaningful. And so I think a lot of times we get caught up and we think that a purpose needs to be something like massive. Your
Yeah.
your purpose, your legacy, it is what it is. Whatever you want it to be, it can be. And as long as it's meaningful for you, that's what matters. And you have a big why. And the thing is that that legacy will live through your children too, because they're going to be watching you, because you're not just fighting for women's equality and helping more women get paid, not just paid, but paid what they deserve when it
Mhm.
comes to speaking so their message could be heard. They're also seeing you do that. So you shining and being successful in your way is going to be really powerful, but at the same time doing it from a position of wellness. I think that's one of the things that is going to be a part of your legacy that people would really admire.
Okay, let's talk about purpose for a second because I think we could have a hot take on this, or at least I have a hot take that I've been
Let's see
exploring
it.
recently. Is I think like find your purpose is kind of a load of shit
Hmm.
because it is gives people this idea that they have to like stop what they're doing and find a job or create something that is inherently like live, laugh, love. And I think that there are a ton of people that haven't found purpose, but have created it in a job that maybe isn't inherently seen as purposeful.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I mean, like, the there's a guy at my gym who cleans the equipment. But when I'm there and he's cleaning the equipment, he's also counting my reps. Like, he sees if my water bottle is low, he's gonna go fill it up. And I go to the YMCA. I'm not going to, like, Soul Cycle or something, like, fancy. And he has created purpose in his job that's cleaning equipment. And so I meet a lot of people that are directionless, feel purposeless, that think the answer is a change of job. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it is. Sometimes you do need to change a job. But I do think that there is like a fallacy around that. Because I've rarely met someone that's like, well, I changed and it's so much better.
Hmm.
Usually they're sitting in the same position that they were before. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
No, I 100%. I think about that's the same way I describe like people who say finding yourself. You have to find yourself.
Mhm.
It's you have to create yourself. You know, you are built. Purpose in the same way is built. And so it has to be within your, again, authentic self. So a lot of times what people recognize is they're living an inauthentic life. So then
Mhm.
they have to change. But then some people think that change is going to bring them the purpose that they want, but then they don't realize that it is a perspective shift that needs to change, not necessarily something tangible
Yeah.
within their life, you know? And so when it comes to purpose, I agree. You have to create it and it's going to look different for different folks too.
Yeah, I just interviewed my mom on my podcast and, which was really, really cool, but she did not, I wouldn't call her someone who had a career,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize that that was something she felt a little, like, insecure about or
Mm.
self-conscious about, until I got an email from her one day years ago when I had just started Headbands of Hope, and it was the first time we had gotten on, like, the local news, and they did a segment about a hospital delivery that we did, and she sent me this email at, like, 2 in the morning and was like, "For a while, I wondered what my purpose was, like, why I was here and what I was doing, and if I was doing enough," and she was like, "Now I realize my purpose was to create 2 kids that are going and doing the big things that I didn't do."
Mm.
And we just talked about this on the podcast because she's like, it was like this light bulb of it wasn't something I had to go find. It was something that I, created through, in her case, motherhood. But there's so many different scenarios or like people that I see. I mean, for
Mm.
example, I worked in Disney World before I, started Headbands of Hope. That's where I got the idea. But, you have to show up to Disney. This was through the Disney College program, and they give you your role, and you don't know, like, what it's gonna be. You just have to commit, and they're like, "You're working in this ride at this attraction in the Magic Kingdom," and, um, so there was a lot of excitement and a lot of disappointment from people. And there was 2 people that I knew that both had custodian roles, and one of them, she was like, "I hate this. Like, I'm literally picking gum off of benches and picking up trash off the streets. Like, this is disgusting. This is gross." And then the other guy who had the exact same job was like, "I get to be outside. I'm the person in the streets that people get to ask, ride should I do next? Where should I go? Can you take my picture? This is the coolest job ever." And so it was kind of the first time I saw up close 2 people who had the same job with completely different experiences in how they look at it. And one found purpose, or one created purpose, and the other was looking for it. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I just think the purpose discussion is so interesting because I see a lot of people almost like waiting to flip over a rock when sometimes it's just created around where you already are.
I agree. I heard a story similarly with a custodian at a school, and in his mind, he's like, "I'm creating an environment where kids can learn. If
Mm,
it's messy, they can't focus as much. So I'm an integral part of the education process."
that is
You know?
so true. My friend Megan Riley, I don't know if you know her. she would also be awesome to have on the show, but
Yeah.
she was on Shark Tank, created this awesome company, but she played basketball in college, and she quit the team because she wasn't getting any playing time. Like, she wasn't good enough, but she was on the team, but she wasn't getting any playing time. And it took her years to realize, like, her spot on the team was the encourager, not the player. Like,
Whoa.
she
Wow.
was an integral part of the team because she was so encouraging to the people that were playing. But she got caught up in saying, like, well, I'm not out there. I'm not getting any playing time. So why am I spending all this time at practice? And so she quit until she realized, like, well, that wasn't my role. My role was encouraging the people that were playing. And so it's just such an interesting way of, like, how we can all find some, I like to call it, and making it without losing it. And when you're extrinsically motivated, you do a lot of box checking, like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm playing, I'm that. And when you're intrinsically motivated, you're connecting the dots. You're recognizing what I do is connected to that, which is connected to that, which is helping this person. And so when you go about your day, or you look at kind of your role and how you think about your work, is it box checking, or are you connecting the dots? Because those are, like, two different types of motivation that we pull from.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. You know, I wonder, because I agree with what you're saying. I'll tell a quick story and then bring it back. So I love tennis. Tennis was my favorite sport growing up.
Oh, we should
Um, yeah, yeah. It's did you play?
recreationally. I'm not
Okay.
Serena Williams over here, but
I didn't
love
know that.
it. Yeah.
Yes, but I love tennis. And I remember one time I was watching a match, and it was the pros playing, and it was a really close match. And one of the players got what he thought was a bad call. Crucial point, final set of the match. And he just lost it. Just lost it and was yelling at the ref for like minutes. Not just like,
Mhm.
hey, I disagree, but minutes. And one of the commentators said something really interesting. He's like, he's going to lose this match because I think he's looking for an excuse.
Ooh.
And I wonder, when it comes to these conversations about purpose and it being created, not discovered, if this is a scary message for people because they want an excuse. Because
Mhm.
the reason I feel unsatisfied, the reason I feel unhappy and unfulfilled is because of the circumstances. I've been looking for purpose, but I have yet to find it. But
Mm.
if we now know that we have the power to create purpose in whatever circumstance we're in, then who can we blame for feeling purposeless?
Yeah, that is profound. And I will say, you know, sometimes circumstance can play a role. I think when you're talking about risk, you talked about this before. When I started Headbands of Hope, the I had a net to fall into.
Mm.
I was never worried about, if this doesn't work, what's going to happen? Am I going to have to, where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? That was never crossing my mind. And so therefore I could take big leaps. I could make big swings because the aftermath wasn't detrimental. But then there are times in our life where it's like, there's we point to lack of resources when it's really lack of being resourceful. And I feel like the further along I get in my career, it's almost like you think that collecting more data is going to make you more resourceful, when really sometimes it highlights what you don't have. Because you have so much more. Well, they have a whole studio that they record their podcast in. Like, I should do that. When I was first starting out, it's like I was just looking at what I had. Oh, I have they do a free domain over here. Like, let's do that. And so sometimes it gets harder the further you go, to be kind of that scrappy and, like, resourcefulness, that underdog, because you think you need to be the champion. There was actually a this example I give when I speak. Do you follow World Chess, Kwame?
Oh, yeah, you're talking about I told you I play chess, but I don't, like,
Wait,
follow
do
the
you really?
competition.
I didn't know that. I'm learning about
Are you
tennis,
for
I'm learning
real?
about chess. Yeah.
Yes, it's a honestly, like, an addiction that I need to work on. I played on chess.com over 26,000 games. I got up to
Shut
the
up.
99th percentile. Like, you're probably going to talk about, like, Magnus Carlsen and stuff.
Magnus Carlsen,
Yeah,
yes.
love chess.
Okay, you might be the only, and there's like a Netflix documentary coming out about him, which it used to be this name. Whenever I would say it, people wouldn't know. But his story. You could probably say it better than I could. But he was the reigning chess champion for what, like 11 straight years, a global champion.
Hmm.
And he was like, one year, he's like, I'm not doing this again. Not coming back. I'm not competing. And when they asked why, he was like, I have done it. I don't have anything left to gain. So you have someone like Magnus Carlsen who just absolutely demolishes to the point where he's uninterested. And then you have someone like Lindsey Vonn with the Winter Olympics this year who had no reason to come back. She's like but been super successful, but was just curious about her own abilities.
Hmm.
And so it's like, well, what's the difference between a Magnus and a Lindsey Vonn? Someone who leaves when they're at the top versus someone who keeps coming back and trying. And I think that when we are like an underdog, when no one's expecting anything of us, it's easy to make the scrappy decisions and be annoying because no one's watching. And underdogs ask, well, how do I make it? Like, how do I make it there? But then when you start to become a champion like Magnus or Lindsay, it becomes not how do I make it, but how do I maintain it? And so you go from playing to win like an underdog to playing not to lose like a champion, which is like two different kinds of motivation that we're pulling from. And so it's not like how can our ambition get us to success? Is can our ambition survive success?
Hmm.
Because surviving success and still being interested is a whole other game. When I was in high school, I won the state title for discus. I
I
was like,
didn't know that. That's
yeah,
cool.
we are learning a lot about each other, even though we've known each other for years. I still hold the school record to this day. Um, and that was my junior year. And I did exactly what you said. I made an excuse and I didn't come back my senior year because I
Mm.
was like, I don't want to, I don't know how to play not to lose. It was easy for me to play to win because no one expected anything of me. Now that I have expectations, which now I'm laughing because I'm like, the expectations of the high school track and field women's throwing, like everyone's watching. Uh, I was too scared of what would happen if I lost.
Imagine your customer. It's late. They're scrolling, and then they find exactly what they've been looking for, your product. They add it to the cart. They hit checkout, and then they realize that their wallet is nowhere near them. Passwords? Forgotten. Card number? Not a chance. That's the moment most businesses lose the sale, but not yours, because your store has that purple button. One tap, done. That's Shop Pay, powered by Shopify, and it's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. Fewer abandoned carts, more completed sales. But Shopify isn't just great for buyers, it's a powerhouse for business owners too. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, you can build a beautiful online shop that matches your brand. Shopify is also packed with AI tools that write product descriptions, polish page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. And with world-class expertise in inventory, shipping, and returns, Shopify is truly your commerce expert. See less carts go abandoned and more sales go with Shopify and their Shop Pay button. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/Kwame. Go to shopify.com/Kwame. That's shopify.com/Kwame. And a big thanks to HomeServe for sponsoring this episode. You know, we talk a lot on the show about being prepared, having the right strategy before you walk into a difficult conversation. But I'll tell you, nothing humbles you faster than being completely unprepared for a home repair. I remember when my water heater just gave out. No warning, no negotiation, just gone. And suddenly you're scrambling, searching for a reliable contractor at the worst possible time, watching costs stack up in real time. That is a stressful place to be. But here's what I wish I'd known. Your regular homeowner's insurance likely doesn't cover that. Plumbing failures, HVAC breakdowns, electrical issues, you're often completely on your own for those. And that's exactly where HomeServe comes in. HomeServe offers plans that cover specific home systems starting at just $4.99 per month. When something goes wrong on your plan, you simply call their 24/7 hotline and they connect you with a local, experienced professional that can handle the repair. No panic, no frantic searching, just one call. They've been helping homeowners for over 20 years with a network of over 2,600 local contractors, 4.5 million customers, and a 4.8 out of 5 post-repair rating. Help protect your home and your wallet with HomeServe against covered repairs. Plans start at just $4.99 per month. Sign up today at homeserve.com to find the plan that is right for you. That is homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month for your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs. Well, I feel like when it's on top, when you're on top, that's scarier
It's
because at least
scarier.
when you're like the scrappy underdog, you could lose and everybody's like, "Oh, good job trying," or more likely, nobody says anything because nobody saw you lose.
Yeah. No
But for
one
me,
saw the 20 discus I threw and hit a car. Yeah.
Ex exactly, and think
Yeah.
about this. For me, like, I was thinking for a long time, you get to the higher levels, and then I just look down, I'm like, "Man, this fall is going to hurt."
Yeah.
You know, if you're not on a high level, then you take risks, and yes, it can be risky in
But
terms of the
have you fallen though,
that's the
and
problem.
does it hurt as bad as you thought it was?
Never does.
Yeah.
Never does, and that's the thing. I have to keep on reminding myself, like, "Hey, listen, okay, that thing that you're afraid of happening, worse have happened and you survived all of those, and
Yep.
so if that happens, you'll survive that too." And but this is the thing, it's like a constant thing, because I think that's one of the things that we have to that I'm learning now is that we have to relearn and reinforce this almost daily, just because the fear will come back. Those voices in your head can be loud. And I think especially for high achievers, the big question is, am I enough? Have I
Mhm.
accomplished enough? What is enough? For you, what does that look like? Have you struggled with that feeling, that concept?
I we all want what did someone call it one time? Cognitive clarity, which means like and this is, you and I have talked a lot about politics. It's a lot of the, like, science behind politics of, like, I'm liberal or I'm conservative. We don't wanna live in nuance. We wanna be able to say I'm this or that, and I think, like, we wanna be able to say that with our job is, like, I have made it or I'm still on the way. When I think the more comfortable I can get in recognizing that there is no finish line. There is, like, no confetti cannon that I'm gonna get. There is no, like, email that's going to change everything for me. You know how sometimes you look in your spam folder to be like, "Is there a life-changing opportunity in here that I just didn't get?" And once I can just get out of this, like, singular outcome mindset and get really excitedly curious about what I'm solving and make it fun, and I get that that's a privilege to make it fun, then it becomes just the outcomes are better for it. Right now, we just, like, got off of a, like, 2-hour planning for all this stuff at Mic Drop, and it's all about just being really curious about, like, where how events are making speaking decisions, what they're getting paid, what the women in our community are doing to apply, and it was just, like, all really excitedly curious, asking good questions, having goals, but not attaching to them. So, I think for me, like, one of the questions I ask on my podcast, when I interview people is like, "What does making it look like for you now, and how is that different than how you would answer that, like, 5 or 10 years ago?" I'll answer it, and I want you to answer it for
Hmm.
me. For me, making it now is more around, not how far I can reach, but how far I'm helping other women reach. So it used to be really set on like how many stages am I on, how many books am I writing, how many TED Talks, how much money am I making? And now I'm like, I want to create a system that teaches other women how to do that. And so my success is more fun and more scalable when it's not around my own bandwidth.
Hmm.
5 years ago, it was the Jess show. It was like, how much can I do? How much can I get? And that was the right time for it to be that way because I had to get that in order for people to be able to listen to me, to trust me to do this. But that was a shift that I made in my definition of making it. And also just
Hmm.
becoming a parent shifted that too.
It'll always shift when parenting comes into the role, like that's going to be big. And I think for me, I've worked hard in the last few months to accept that I have made it and I've gotten to that feeling of enough. And I think for me, then the next horizon would be time, mastery of time.
Mm.
That's the thing. Because I'm content with the impact because I know the compound interest of just the content machine that we've created with daily podcast episodes, posting and everything. I'm really happy with the impact that I've had. And now I want to focus on having more of an impact on my kids, my sons, like Kai and Dominic, and spending time with Whitney and focusing on that legacy. And right now, with the way that things are going, I'm on the road a lot, well, a lot more than I'd like, and and when I am home, I've got a ton of podcasts to do, batching to keep up, So it is the next step of making it will be the feeling of not feeling hurried all the time, the
Mm.
ability to comfortably say no to opportunities. That's the next level. But I'm content, and it took me a long time, a lot of journaling to get to it because I started to say, okay, well, if you haven't made it net yet, what does that mean?
What is
What
that?
what does
Yeah.
what
What does
does
that
it
look
even
like?
mean?
Yeah.
Because if you ask the younger version of yourself, he would say for sure you've made it.
Yeah.
And even if you present all
100%.
these problems you like that, you're not gonna lose your house. Everything's fine. So I think it's just acceptance of I'm in a good spot. I trust my strategy is going to keep on moving forward, but time mastery and the ability to invest more time comfortably with family is going to be big.
There was a this like fitness influencer that I follow, and I'm probably saying this is the wrong person because you're super jacked and you go to the gym a lot. But he was like the people who are like 0% body fat, these like crazy jacked bodies, who are like, just do 20 squats in this routine. You don't see the sacrifices that they're making
Yeah.
in their lifestyle to stay at that body type. And
Mm.
so, and he was like, most of the time, like, you don't want to live a life that requires those kinds of sacrifices.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I don't need that like rock solid bod because like I like, the chips and salsa at a Mexican restaurant with a
Yes.
margarita salt rim. Same thing with my business where I'm like, I mean, you've been on Mel Robbins' podcast, you've seen like, holy shit, this is like, they have just made it. If we knew what it took to do that, it might not be the decision that we make to do it.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
really like where I'm at right now in my business. I'm not Mel Robbins, I'm not Brene Brown, but I like that I am able to support my family in doing this and the lifestyle that it affords me. And for me, that's enough right now.
Yes.
Well, I'll add something right here too, is I was doing a like an event with John Maxwell, and he would say a lot of people ask, "Oh, like, how do I do what you do?" And he responds, "If you want to do what I do, are you willing to do what I did?"
Mm.
And it is like, oh shit. And when I look at what I have done to get to where I am today, whether that was starting Headbands of Hope or all like the free speaking I had to do to get the reps in, I'm not sure if I would do it again. Like if someone presented it, starting over. I love where I'm at now, but damn, that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It always is.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. And I've got a funny story for you because I remember one time Kai was watching TV and he saw The Rock. And we all know what The Rock looks like. He looks like a science experiment,
Of course.
And he's like, Daddy, I want you to get a six pack. And it was like 5, 6 at the time. So I walked up to him. I kneeled down and looked him in the eye, put my hand on my shoulder, and I said, Kai, I want to be really clear about something. Your daddy will never have a six pack. And he said, why not? I said, because I am simply not willing to do what it takes to get that.
Yes.
And and the reality is what? No, I don't need it. I'm married. I'm good. I'm done. And I am enough in that regard. And then also I recognize like the path. It's not just an undesirable lifestyle for me. It's an undesirable lifestyle for the people around you.
A
You know,
100%.
it's
Anytime like my husband's like, I'm doing low carb this week or no carb, I'm like, damn it. Because
I
it is
know.
just, I'm like, well, then what are we going to fight about? Because this is how it's going to go.
But that's it, right? I think it's so important to come to that conclusion sometimes.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, there is some goal. That looks good. What will it take? No, no,
I'm good.
no,
Yeah.
not for that. And then just coming to terms with that. And I
Yeah.
think a big part of that is avoiding what the philosopher Rene Girard would call mimetic desire. So
Mhm.
humans will look at other people, monkey see, monkey do. It's through mimicry. Oh, I see a person doing that or having these things, so I want to do that mainly because I see that. And then we play this status game with people who don't even know exist. And then we feel bad because we're grading ourselves on their terms, not ours.
Mhm.
And we don't know what they've had to go through. We all know with social media, it's just a snippet. We're seeing a fraction of
Mhm.
1% of their life. And it is
Totally.
heavily curated and everything like that. And the thing is, I feel like it's so important to have your blinders on. So you start to just continue to focus on the things that are most important to you. So you can really harness that authenticity and not get distracted by so many other things because it's really hard to go through that introspection to understand what you really want and why and create that purpose and own it. But it becomes harder when we're distracted by all of the 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 things we can see in the media that can lead us astray.
So there's this thing that I call the purpose test in making it without losing it. And it kind of applies to what we're doing right now. And anyone listening, you can do it right now. So I tell people, whatever the thing is that you're chasing, whether it's uh, you know, money goal, whether it's something, an award related to your job, maybe it's a six pack like we're talking about, get like one thing in your head. You can pause the show while you do that. Okay, you got it. So what I want you to do now is imagine that you got it. Whatever that thing is. You got the email, you got the notification, you got the phone call, but the kicker is no one knows that it's you.
Hmm.
Can't tell anyone. You can't share it. You can't tell your spouse. You can't tell your parents. You can't tell your colleagues. You can't post on LinkedIn. I'm pleased to announce that you have to remain anonymous. Is the thing that you're chasing, would you still do it if no one knew about it? What is your answer, Kwame?
That's so funny. I feel like the
Now I
man,
want to know what you're chasing.
that was funny. It's yeah, I mean, I realize that that's really funny. So things like I like having the impact.
Mhm.
Podcasting, all that stuff is great. I like knowing that I can help to change people's lives. I'd do that. I'd do that for free. Like mentorship, all that stuff. I love it. That's why I'm not on my sales calls anymore. FYI.
Mhm.
Because because I'm like, I don't care about the price. Let's go.
Let's
I
do
can
it.
neg
Yeah.
I can negotiate well with anything else. But if it's like, hey, you're negotiating fun for me,
Yeah.
okay, yes, please. But then I think about the awards. I think being an entrepreneur, being uh raised in law school, there's a lot of status and it's a lot of the awards. Like I have I used to have like a schedule of achievement, but I do recognize that I have like this metric for myself where I need to have a certain type of accomplishment within a
Yeah.
certain time frame where I don't feel good. And
Mm.
then it's like I don't even care about these things.
Yeah.
Just
Isn't
want
it
to be
funny
able
how
to
that
know that
happens?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I just got
Wow.
the what's it even called? The Inc. 500 email as
Nice.
founder. Yeah. Um exactly my reaction. Cool. 5 minutes later, I was like, well, that didn't solve all my problems. Here we go on to the next thing.
Yes.
And not to say that like those things shouldn't be like celebrated, applauded, and not to say that you shouldn't want those things. But if they are like your primary driving force, then it's probably knowledge to receive that you're going after things based on how they look instead of how they feel. If you still would go after it with no one knowing, then it's a really good indicator that like your like compass is well calibrated. Go for it.
Mhm.
Um and sometimes it doesn't mean that we shouldn't go after it, but it might mean that we should change the way we think about it.
Yes. So I'll give a more tangible example too, because last weekend we did a spring break, and we went to Hocking Hills, which is a beautiful part of Ohio, where it's really cool. So like a glacier, long time ago, melted there, and so there's very interesting, unique topography, caves, and like mini mountains and things like that. And it's a great place for astrotourism. You can see the stars perfectly
Mm,
because there's no light pollution. So we rented a cabin out there, had this nice property with a pond and everything, no screens ever, just completely disconnected. And we had so much fun. And I said to myself, why is it that I always want to do these international trips, like these international luxury trips with the family? And I feel so pressed to do that.
mhm.
And I had to be honest with myself because the depth of happiness and connection we had here was so much deeper. And I was like, man, I have to be honest with myself. It is two reasons. The pictures look better.
Mhm.
And also I see other successful entrepreneurs doing these like very epic, expensive trips.
Mhm.
That's why I want to do it. But if the goal is happiness and connection, I got this right here.
Right here.
You know? And so I intentionally didn't post anything about it. I was like, I want this to be its own
Mhm.
encapsulated thing just for me and my family, something real. And so just recognizing, oh, wait a second, those a substantial amount of my goals are ego driven. Like they used to be for a specific purpose when you're young, especially as like a young thought leader in negotiation. I started all of this at age 27. There wasn't a such thing as a young negotiation expert. So I needed a lot of that external validation to show people that I was legit and I actually knew what I was talking about. But at this point, I had to recognize it's a lot of it is just vanity and
When does
ego.
it stop? Yeah, yeah, that's so
Exactly.
interesting, and I love that you shared that. I've had many moments where I'm like, eh, yeah, like, "Well, I didn't document it, I didn't take a picture. How will people know that we did this thing?" It's like, "Well, what if they don't have to?" Interesting you say that about the young thing too. I started young as well, and I think that I was really looking for proof to show people that I was qualified to be here, and, uh, and then that just doesn't stop, you know? And, as I think about, like, the book comes out today, and as I think about it, of course, with books, there's a lot of pressure for lists and, you know, whatever, New York Times, USA Today. I think about my daughter when the books came to the house and, you open it up for the first time, and she's like, "Mama, you wrote a book." She wasn't like, is it a New York Times bestseller? Like, it was just like, "Whoa, you wrote a book." She did come at me though, because she was like she opened it, she's like, "Where are the pictures? Like, what's the problem? Don't give me this trash." Uh, but I do, you know, you have to kinda see it sometimes through the eyes of, like, young you or your kids. It's like, yeah, you're in the game, like, you're doing it. I remember talking to when I was writing my first book, I got, like, really bad edits back from an editor and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is, like, terrible. I'm gonna have to start over," and I was talking to my business coach about it, And she's like, "Well, what are you making this mean?" I'm like, "It means I'm a shitty writer, that I'm not like shouldn't be doing this." And she goes, "A New York Times bestseller. What do you think the problems they're having are?" And I was like, "Probably, book sales and getting edits back on their book." She was like, "Yeah, this problem isn't reflection that you shouldn't be here. This problem is a reflection that you are participating in the game." So I think a lot of times, like, we think of our problems in business and work or whatever it might be as reflections of our abilities, when really it's just evidence of the process. It's like, yeah, someone who is not doing anything, it's not going to have like, a lot of repercussions of risks that they didn't take. But
Right.
when you have big problems, it probably means that you're doing big things. And so
Mm.
kind of giving yourself some kudos for that.
Oh, that's good. That is good. And this is the perfect time to bring in Simone, because I could talk to you all day about this, Jess. I know that because we have.
We
We've done
have.
that
We do that a lot.
before. So Simone, what's on your mind?
Back in the day, you were not using your Netflix account and you were friends with Mark Radolph. You had the money to have your own subscription, right? So why did you decide to use your sister's Netflix account?
Ah. Once a younger annoying sister, always a younger annoying sister. I think uh, even when I was a kid and I was like really into eBay, I sold all my American Girl doll stuff, and then I went and sold my sister's American Girl doll stuff because I saw how much you could make from it. And so I no longer use her Netflix account, but I would ride that train as long as it took me.
Well, and Simone, here's the thing. Tell me if I'm wrong, Jess, but probably the reason you don't use it anymore is because they cut down on the ability to do that.
1,000%. I don't understand why all of these streaming services are now not letting us use other people's passwords. Come on.
I know.
Now
So
I'm
many
like, now
people.
it's just more expensive than cable.
I was talking to Whitney about that the other day. I was like, we were just led like sheep to the slaughter. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it is so cheap. I'm going to quit everything. Forget cable. This is the future. Yeah, the future of value extraction.
Done. Yeah. And I did get an email the other day from Netflix about a price increase. I was like, damn you.
Always, always, always coming for more. But Netflix and Hulu, if you need a keynote speaker for your next event,
Yeah.
Jess.
Or if you want to advertise on Negotiate Anything.
That's right. That's right. We need sponsors.
We love you. Yeah. Hire us.
Yes. Oh, this is good. Well, Jess, delightful as always. I appreciate you coming on the show. Before you go, I want to make sure the listeners know where they can get in touch. What's the
Yeah.
best way to connect? Tell them about the programs. Of course, let's
Sure.
land the plane with making it without losing it too.
Y'all, I'm not hard to find. I am on Instagram at Jess Ekstrom. I will say I'm cooler on LinkedIn than I am Instagram, so find me there. I also send out a hype text every Monday, something that I'm like thinking about, a quote, a question. Send it every Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern. So you can text me the word hype to 704-228-9495, and you can get that. And then you can buy Making It Without Losing It out today. Anywhere books are sold. I'm a sucker for local. So if you can find your local bookstore and ask if they have it or ask if they can order it, that would be great.
Amazing. Jess, thank you so much for joining us again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kwame. Thanks, Simone.